You know, we in NASA, we're an incredibly unique organization. We're the only agency in the federal government that's responsible for the safety and well-being of people, not only here on Earth, but off this planet. So my experience in the astronaut office, my experience as an active duty Marine, always talked about the importance of family preparedness and to make sure that we had a viable family support program. And I have concerns that ours right now is not as good as it ought to be. So what I'm asking all of you in the NASA family, whether you're out on the West Coast, here on the East Coast, along the Gulf Coast, up on the Great Lakes, think about the natural disasters that could occur in your area. Think about attacks that could come like 9/11 from outside forces, and talk to your family about your work and what they need to do to prepare for the unforeseen. Develop a family preparedness plan in your house. Have an emergency supply kit available. Most people who live along the Gulf Coast always have an emergency kit for hurricanes. I'm not sure whether people out on the West Coast think about earthquakes and the like, but have an emergency supply kit at your home. Think about a family communications plan. Where are we going to meet if an emergency occurs and we're all over town? What are we going to do? Are we going to call each other on the cell phone? Just think about those things. If you have pets, think about a pet preparedness plan. How are you going to make sure that they're taken care of when you're spread all over the place? And then if you have family members who have special needs preparedness. The most important asset for us to successfully complete our mission is that our people, our families mainly, are taken care of so that we can come to work and feel good that if an emergency arises, our families are going to be taken care of. So I would ask you again, sit with your families, think about what you would do in an emergency situation. I hope that you'll embrace and support the Family Preparedness Program as we all get better prepared to deal with these emergencies. Know your stuff. You know what it is that you're going to do, know what it is that you want your family to do if an emergency arises. But most of all, in your house. Know what it is that you're going to do, know what it is that you want your family to do if an emergency arises. But most of all, be prepared. Be prepared.
It might actually be a nation buster. It'll take out Germany. It'll take out France, England, or the entire northeast of the United States.
Careful.
It'll hit with the force of 100,000 Hiroshima bombs.
Really? If it hits?
If it hits, right. It's a catastrophe beyond human comprehension. But it's something that we have to take seriously. This is the first major threat from a giant meteor or asteroid.
Were it to hit us, do we know what it would do to our rotation around the sun and the spinning on the axis?
Well, it will definitely affect the rotation of the Earth as it goes around the sun. The immediate impact would be a gigantic shock wave going out maybe 50 to 100 miles, then firestorms going out to hundreds of miles beyond that.
Firestorms.
And then meteorites raining back down on the planet Earth. So the devastation would be on the order of 500 to 1,000 miles. Think of a bullseye containing half the United States. That's the potential impact. The wild card is also the atmospheric disturbances. It's going to come right to the outskirts of our own atmosphere. Friction is going to take place, and that's unpredictable. We simply don't know how it's going to react as it whizzes through the atmosphere of the Earth, and that could affect the second pass. And that's why we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah. But isn't the world ending in 2012? The Mayan calendar seems to indicate.
Well, if you look at the Mayan calendar, it actually says that it's cyclical, and we could be witnessing a rebirth. We should be celebrating then. And personally, I hope to be around in 2013.
Well, news from the future. 2012 is going to be weird.
Something's going on at NASA. It's a weird story. The NASA administrator, Charles Boldem, talked to personnel last week about preparedness. But to be prepared for what?
There are some clues. When you listen to it carefully, there were three things that kind of leaped out at me. The first was his very strange reference to personnel off planet. Why didn't you just say the guys and gals in the space station? Do we have NASA personnel other places in the solar system?
Good question.
Was that a hint to a secret aspect? It's a very curious phraseology, and by looking at this, when you see the video, of course, the visual is an important part of the story. His body language, I mean, you obviously watched it. What did you think of his body language?
I thought the whole thing was weird.
Well, there's a context. I mean, we've gone through a hell of a spring. You know, there have been horrible tornadoes in Alabama, in Joplin, Missouri. There have been, you know, the problem of Fukushima, the threat of radiation. We've now got, you know, Fort Calhoun, which is kind of teetering on the edge of we don't know what because no one's telling us really anything. We are living in a very uncertain world and uncertain time, but he made specific reference that it was part of something called COG, C-O-G, continuity of government. Now, continuity of government is what you do in case you've got World War III, all-out thermonuclear exchange with somebody, or an asteroid takes out the entire western United States or eastern. In other words, it's not something trivial. It is to keep the government at some level functioning in secure locations where they can come up to the surface or back on the air after the dust has settled, maybe literally, and try to reestablish the United States of America. This is not trivial. And then, of course, it's against the backdrop of this whole incredibly weird business going on the net around Comet Ellen.